Welcome back. This is Inside Politics here on KTN News, Kenya's only Sunday morning political show where we dissect the biggest political and policy issues in the Republic. Now, former head of public service Francis Muthaura has proposed a constitutional amendment to allow the presidential candidate with the highest number of votes and the runners-up to automatically form a coalition government. In his proposal to the Building Bridges initiative, Muthaura said the winner in a presidential election should become the president and head of state and appoint the runner-up as prime minister. It said the position of deputy president should not be abolished for succession purposes.
Politics will change. People who are going to be number two are not going to conduct a campaign of name calling. It will not be a name calling because he knows very well the other fellow is likely to be his partner in government. The number one was is not going to conduct a campaign because you need to know he is going to be number one. He's not going to conduct a campaign of name calling, which is really personalized, becomes bitter, and people cannot work. Now they will be working on issues. And there is no problem with people disagreeing on issues. You know, if it's issue-based politics, there is absolutely no problem. And then the other thing is, we have seen people operate from very different positions. For example, during 2007, you remember Uhuru and Ruto were in very opposite and very antagonistic camps, which you remember resulted into all those things that we had. But in 2013, they were together, forming a Jubilee. They worked very well, and they have been working very well. Raila the other day was being sworn as people's president. Today, they are working very closely with the president. So what I'm saying here is that let us, our constitution, the way it is formed here, is to tame our politicians. Tame them so that they are concentrated more on issues and they concentrate more on positive, competitive.
Former head of public service Francis Muthaura speaking to the handshake team, the Building Bridges initiative team, giving them his proposals to the structure of the executive that will end the so-called winner-take-all nature of Kenya's presidential system. Wanawakili, let me begin with you. What Muthaura is saying, does it make any sense to you?
Yeah, first of all, that's quite a bit of politics there, the way he has sat there, number one. And he has brought out quite...
I mean, he was an insider during those years. And
yes, and what he says is actually critical, curious as well.
All right.
And he has shown you that despite the fact that you may lose or win, at the end of the day, people just want to be in government and in leadership, and they will be friends. And he has given you the example of Ruto, Uhuru, and now Raila and Uhuru. And also in Kibaki time, we had issues. So what he's saying, it makes sense. Though it is slightly different from what ODM is suggesting. That is just, I think, a question of tying loose ends. What he has said is what people want, is what the leaders want. And it has also come out to show that there is really no need, honestly, for Kenyans to keep fighting. There is no right or wrong principle in politics. What he's saying is we can now change the constitution and make those who are friends become enemies or make enemies become friends, but we are still leading the nation. He makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. Jerotich, we have had this prime minister position thing being thrown around quite a bit. What Muthaura is saying is, in effect, let's have a grand coalition, a Nusumkate government permanently enshrined in the constitution.
Allow me to be more frank than usual.
Is that possible?
I'm absolutely furious. I'm angry. I'm irritated. I'm annoyed that once again the political elite in Kenya is trying to force an agenda on the people of Kenya. The Constitution of Kenya is clear, 2 terms and it's over. And once again, they're looking for an unoriginal way to ensure the extended paramount space that Jubilee holds. So how about we come Nusumkate again, so that possibly the president, who's currently the president, will come back in as a prime minister, because it's already been set up. We're pawns in a chess game and on the chessboard, and we are easily sacrificed. As a friend of mine said, and I will keep using this example, democracy in Kenya right now, and Muthaura has really clarified it for us, democracy in Kenya right now is 2 hyenas and a goat voting on what to eat for lunch. And you're absolutely certain that the goat will be on the menu. We are the goat. We're feisty, we push back, but we're still the goat, and we're overpowered by the 2 hyenas. And for me, this is a very elite attempt, and originally, again, to capture leadership and recycle it. Don't forget that ODM in 2009 actually accused Muthaura of overstepping his bounds when he was then the head of civil service, and he was accused of overstepping his bounds and actually constitutionally stepping on the toes of the Prime Minister's office then held by Raila Odinga. So yes, it is true that at the end of the day, there are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Right. And we're having a merry-go-round of monarchical interests, oligarchies, elite families who are saying, no matter what, let us twist everything we can, even if it means undoing the work that went into preparing the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that's very clear around presidential terms and is very comfortable with the way we are set up right now. Even if it means undoing all of that through an expensive referendum, whose accountability we are not even certain of, because even if we were to vote, how sure are we that it will not be rigged? So I'm furious that again we're being forced to waste time to discuss all of these issues instead of looking at national development, instead of looking at accountability, instead of looking at theft. So this is just a game, and here we'll be told, even Muthaura himself said, when Miguna swore Raila in as the people's president, he said that constituted 40% of the population, and he said, I read it in one of the newspapers, he said, and this 40% of the population constitutes or represents a threat. What is Muthaura exactly saying when he says 40% of those that swore Raila in as a people's president was a threat? It means this threat has to be neutralized. How do you neutralize this threat? By creating an intricate system that eventually gives Raila access to power in a way that he can neutralize his 40% following, as they say, and still keep business interests in play. This is absolutely disingenuous, and we have to say no to it.
Mark, even as you tell me what you think about the proposal and the setup that Muthaura is proposing, Muthaura is seen as an insider in the Uhuru Kenyatta administration. Does that give credence to what Jerotich is saying here?
I would be very slow.
That it is a deeper, it is a heavier proposal than we are seeing.
I would be very slow in dismissing the good ambassador's message. Because when I look at it, his conclusion is flawed. His logic exists. This is what I mean. Number one, what he's saying is that if we went back to 2017 and the election was run, number one was Uhuru Kenyatta and number 2 was Raila Odinga. He's saying that if those 2 people were forced in some way to form a government together, the country would not have been in tension. Now, is that a statement of fact? It is. It is a statement of fact that this country has twice breathed a sigh of relief when the number 1 and number 2 in an election shook hands. In fact, the second one being more significant, because the handshake did not mean the division of ministries and the division of the national cake. But it showed to this country that there is an urgent need and a clear and present danger availed to us by the simple fact that we've not dignified opposition in this country. I tell you, look at this issue post-Uhuru, post-Raila, post-Ruto. Look at this issue 15 years from now. 15 years from now, I guarantee you that this country will still have major tribes leading its politics because it is an ethno-majoritarian country. Therefore, every time we have an election, we will need a coalition. That coalition will be about this ethnic group and that ethnic group and that other ethnic group. The question must be asked that how do we validate the wishes, the desires of the 49.9% it could be that wanted another way.
All right.
My way is not to agree with Muthaura that the number 2 automatically gets into government. My view would be that the person who comes second in that election needs to be the leader of opposition in the National Assembly.
All right.
Why? Because throughout this time, even on this bench, how many people have complained that Kenya does not have an opposition, that we don't have a check and a balance in opposition?
Right.
What happens in this country is Raila Odinga is the one who goes around the country campaigning. Then the leader is John Mbadi. Who's John Mbadi? Does he have the same clout to look Uhuru Kenyatta in the face and say not today? He does not. Therefore, we must consider how do we dignify the position of the person who has had the largest say. In fact, we are lucky that the people who came in second are ex-prime ministers and ex-deputy presidents. Ben Kitili, if you had run in that election and you had come number 2 with 40% of the vote, today you would not have a bodyguard to your name, you would not have security, you would be in danger in this country.
All right. So you don't agree with Muthaura?
I don't agree with this conclusion.
All right.
I agree that we do need to address the issue of accommodating and dignifying opposition in this country.
All right. Dismas, where do you stand in this? Because a lay person would ask, and would ask, where is the role of the opposition in that? Where is the checks and balances to the national government? Moses Kuria has already told Muthaura that losers belong to the opposition. What do you think?
You know, when Dr. Francis Muthaura speaks, you have to sit up and listen. He's been the head of the public service, he's a career public servant, and as you indicated, he's seen to be an insider in this administration. He's actually been an insider in almost all these administrations, because I understand he joined the public service straight from university, so he's been a public servant. And he probably knows many things than the majority of Kenyans. That's number 1. Number 2, I come from Kisii. Occasionally we have bouts of malaria. So when you're going to have malaria, you do not translocate the entire Kisii population to Nairobi because there are mosquitoes around. You address the issue of mosquitoes. What Muthaura is not addressing is IBC, that you have a free, fair and credible election. So that if you have an election and somebody is pronounced a winner, then we know for a fact somebody has won. And you're not going to address that by saying, we are going to play around with number 1 and number 2, so the 2 of you go and make peace and form a government. We have to take a decision. Do we want a pure presidential system? A winner takes it all? Yes. Do we want a parliamentary system where number 2 becomes the head of the opposition? Yes. But this idea that Muthaura is suggesting, in my view, it must be condemned in the strongest terms possible.
Okay.
Because the 2 outcomes are dangerous. Say, for instance, it's 2022 and you've had 2 presidential candidates, and Musalia Mudavadi wins with his economic policies, and Ruto becomes number 2 with his tanga-tanga philosophy. How do they go to a boardroom and agree on what they are going to be working on? 2 scenarios will emerge. If they go to bed, then you're going to have a 2-man dictatorship. Because, you know, they'll have a majority in the National Assembly and Senate, and then they can decide to run Kenya as they deem fit. If they do not get along, then you have 2 powerful people who are pulling in 2 different directions.
For 5 years.
Yeah, for 5 years, the country will come to a standstill.
Okay.
Now, Ambassador Muthaura was the head of the public service when you had President Kibaki and Raila Odinga almost pulling in 2 different directions.
And
every single day when you wake up in the morning, there's tension. So in my view, Muthaura did not look at the elephant in the room. And you know, he's a wise old man. He's like a giraffe. He's got the ability and capacity to see very far. We should just accept that. Let's clean up IBC. And you know, Kenyans don't care. I don't know what Bichachi is talking about, that people will care about who is running the nation, from which tribe.
Let me ask you this.
Let me ask
you this, and as we try to get to the bottom of it, do Kenyans, we have a constitution which gives us a presidential system. When we voted for it, we knew it was a winner-take-all. Are we trying to create plastic inclusivity by such proposals? And number two, are Kenyans against the issue of having a winner-take-all, or are they against it because the election are not seen to be free and fair?
It's a few political leaders who for some reason always think that they've got a title deed, they're entitled to be in government. From the time you become an MC or an MP, you want to be in government till the time you die. I mean, you have elections in the US, you run, you lose, you go home. Hillary Clinton went home, George Bush, people go home. Why would you imagine that if you run an election, you lose, you must be accommodated in a presidential system? If it's in a parliamentary system, just accept, take your position. I mean, so you have an election, you have the two guys say one gets 49 and another one 51, you accommodate them. What if you have an election with three strong personalities? One gets 30, another one 30, another one gets 31. You accommodate the three. At some stage, you'll accommodate everybody who has run for the presidency. So the elephant in the room is for us to create a system whereby we can actually count votes. So this idea of us being told by people, including Bichache, that every Kenyan, you want your tribe there. So, no. People are looking at the scoreboard, they want to see results.
Yes, Bwana Wakili, then I'll come to you, Mark.
I listened to Say speak, and I've now heard Muthaura. The assumption, which is not necessarily being rhetorically brought out, is that Uhuru again is going to run or something like that and becomes our prime minister. So I think we should be frank and open. What the former chief of civil service was saying is, for example, I mean, we are going to really have an amendment to the constitution. I think that is the first step we must agree. There are plans to have the constitution changed and amended so that it can accommodate certain positions. And these are the positions being proposed. There is no guarantee that William Ruto, for example, is going to contest and become number 2. At least today, we have not seen that. Or there's no guarantee that Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta is going to contest and Raila becomes number 2. So I don't know why they are not bringing that out. They only say it so that they are bitter with Mzee, and it looks like they are so much aware that so-and-so is going to be number 2 and so-and-so is going to be number 1.
And let's be clear. There's key mistakes that this country keeps making. Stop changing the constitution looking backwards and looking only presently. Constitutions are documents for 50, 60, 100 years. That's what you're making them. So if you look at the constitutional amendment and you see Ruto and you see Raila and you see Uhuru, you see the absolute wrong thing. You need to consider. And this is my point. When people say that America is a winner-take-it-all system, not quite. Bernie Sanders, when he ran, he continued being a senator. Today, as we speak, the 24 Democrats are running.
It's simply
this is what I'm saying, that there is space for his political agenda for people to feel like it's still being expressed. That is why when he goes to Senate, he still pushes against Wall Street. Talks about removing the caps, the loans from the students. Why? Because the people who voted for that 49% voted for an idea. They voted for an ideal. What you need to give those people is a river for that idea to continue flowing. That's what we're talking about. I really don't care whose career ends. How does it help me? Is he my father?
I just want to say something, and Wakili, if I was not clear, let me be categorical here. The thing is, how far is this regime willing to go to ensure its succession? And by succession, I'm talking about the extension of the rulership of Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya. And if we are going to overturn the constitution in order to allow this to happen, and these are the discussions, it's an amendment, it's a referendum. I don't even agree with the outcome of the last elections because IEBC was flawed. We are talking about a slippery slope. This is a slippery slope because now actors will start coming in. And in fact, part of the carrot that will be dangled, I hear that they're even talking about removing term limits for governors. And the minute you start discussing these issues, then others from civil society will come and say, well, add this and add that. Somebody else will say, we want this. And the regime will say, sure, we shall accommodate all of you. But they had one single minded objective: to maintain power. And how they do it is by messing around with our constitution. And this is what we must categorically refuse. Tell me what is wrong with the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Tell me what we enforced and did not work. Tell us about Chapter 6. Tell us about the two-thirds gender rule. Tell us about every single act that exists in the Constitution that protects our rights, that protects Wakenya. This is on the line in order to allow one or two people to maintain power. And as I say, that handshake, no matter what they say, cohesion, peace, whose cohesion?
So you don't think Muthaura is
no,
thinking about
Muthaura is completely disingenuous. Who sent Muthaura? Who sent Ambassador Muthaura to come and propose this to the BBI? This is part of a setup. He did not spontaneously wake up as a citizen of this country.
Give me 10 seconds.
Hold on. In all his wisdom, he did not wake up as a citizen of this country and say, let me come and show you how we're going to bring about security, peace, and cohesion. No, this is part of a setup. Mark my words. 1 year from today, 6 months from today, we will be saying, yes, this is a setup. And so as the citizens of Kenya, how are we going to hold ground for the Constitution of Kenya 2010?
But for that to make sense, for it to be, for what Muthaura said, to be a conduit for Uhuru to stay in power, it means that Uhuru has to be a candidate, not for prime ministership, for presidency come 2022. Now, unless we are going to introduce a third and fourth term, man.
That's what the referendum is about.
That's a long shot.
That's what the referendum is about.
It's a conspiracy theory.
President Kenyatta has indicated in black and white that he is not interested in another term in office. So we may be seeing shadows all over, but unless he goes back and he says, I'm interested in this position, maybe in another world, but right now he's indicated he's not running. But the mischief is that when you go for an election, what is an election? Candidates present ideas and then voters buy one particular set of ideas. Now, the person with the best ideas, or the one who engages in mischief, goes to office, is given the opportunity to implement. Why force another person on him? Why would you want to force another person on him? And that's the big question that Ishmael is tiptoeing around by saying that he is seeing like Bichache some shadow figures. But the thing is very clear. We go for an election, people present ideas, you agree with one personality, that these are the ideas. I mean, like for instance, when you go to the West, somebody may run on a party saying, I want to increase taxation, and another one says, I want to reduce taxation. Now you place the two in a room. What will happen? So the elephant in the room that nobody is addressing is IEBC. Let's have a free, fair, credible election.
Final question for everyone. We have 2 minutes only. Do we have, Mark, I'll come to you, Bonakil. Do we have, is there anything wrong with the Kenyan Constitution 2010 in terms of executive power?
There is nothing wrong. What we have is a leadership crisis and a few politicians who for some reason believe that they're the ones who own Kenya and must lord all over Kenyans.
Thank you, Mark.
The constitutions don't have to be wrong to be amended. It's about where you want the country to go. You understand? It's like saying I bought a new car because my car was spoiled. That doesn't make sense. You buy it because you want one. And
you don't think they have to be wrong if they include having a referendum that will cost billions
wrong with the constitution, of course, fix it. But I'm saying this particular constitution requires to be adjusted to the realities of Kenyan political life. And those constitutional amendments, for me, I support. And I have many ideas that I think Kenyans should at least be allowed to debate. And that debate should be removed from personalities.
All right, 30 seconds only, Jerotich.
There's nothing wrong with the Constitution of Kenya 2010 unless I have proof that we have implemented it, as Mark was saying, over 60 years. To now say, look, we need to change this, we need to amend that. There's nothing wrong with the Constitution of Kenya. The only reason why we have mischief is to ensure succession.
I think, Ben, what I wanted to say is a bit something like prediction. There seems to be all circumstantial evidence that Honorable William Ruto is being prepared to become president of the country. But whether that will be in 2022 is extremely suspicious. There has been these kind of things done on Honorable Raila Odinga. It's only now everybody, including Mount Kenya, have said we are ready for him. So I don't think anybody needs to be foolish or ignorant to understand the Kenyan political scene. William Ruto will be opposed entirely as long as it takes until his present energy has completely been exhausted, and then people will decide, oh yeah, now we probably need him. So Muthaura going there to speak is not new, like my colleagues have said. He could have been requested to include 1 or 2 points, but the fact is, people want to go to the referendum, people want to change leadership style, the target is William Ruto. Now, I think a smart politician like he is will completely have to understand what are his circumstances at the moment and what are the dynamics.
All right, thank you, Bonakili. Ishmael Nyaribo there with his crystal ball. We'll see and we'll wait and see what happens. That's a story we are keeping an eye on. Of course, the handshake team going across the country, getting submissions from Kenyans on what needs to be done. Those are the views of my panel here on Inside Politics. Let's take a quick commercial break here on the broadcast. When we come back, we shall be focusing on a different non-political issue, and that is the gambling menace in the country. It has been discussed as a moral issue in the country. Now the government is cracking the whip on betting farms. 27 of them have been told to reapply afresh for their licenses. Their e-wallets, mobile money wallets, are suspended. The government says they do not pay taxes, according to a report that was quoted by the Ministry of Interior, that betting companies made a total of around 201 billion shillings in 2018, yet only 4 billion shillings was paid in taxes. These concerns going all the way to the British Parliament. Don't go too far.